Hello, this is the workshop on segmentation, targeting, and positioning using cluster analysis. So through this workshop, you will gain an understanding not only of how to conduct cluster analysis in support of a segmentation, targeting, positioning analytic exercise, but also how to do this in Excel. So we're using Excel because A, it's the most popular analytic tool in the world. Although it's not the most efficient or fastest in doing k-means clustering, there's another advantage, which is B, that it will give you a deeper understanding of how k-means clustering works by going through this exercise with Excel. This will be somewhat of a manual process, but you will be conducting k-means clustering, which is an unsupervised learning technique in machine learning. So first, it's important that you download the documents for this particular exercise. And the documents you're going to need are the instructions for the in-class exercise on segmentation, targeting, and positioning using cluster analysis that you can find in Blackboard. Within those instructions, you'll see that you need to download two other documents: the Chipotle data set and the survey document that gives a description of the survey that was given to over 350 people, where they were asked several questions about Chipotle, Chipotle's competitors, and their fast food eating habits. It's important to read through this document first before you proceed with the k-means clustering analysis exercise, because this document that gives the keys, it's a survey key on the variables that are included in the Chipotle data set, give you a very good description of what those variables mean and what the questions were asked, so that you can learn how to interpret your results. So I'm going to assume that you have downloaded these documents. I will share on my screen what those documents look like so that you can be sure you have the right document. So what I'm showing now is the in-class exercise. You should have this downloaded and ready to go. Your expectation is to follow along with me. I will not be providing you answers to some of these questions, but I'm going to show you how to set up the data set and manage the data so you can get answers to many of these questions. The second document I'm going to show you, stop sharing this, is the data set. And here is the data set. The file is called Chipotle Relabeled. And here you see on the first tab, the data set itself. Each row represents one person who gave a response to the survey. And then the second tab is a table that contains the variables that are associated with the survey. The first part of the in-class exercise is we're going to categorize these variables. The third thing I'm going to show you is the survey document itself, the survey key. Okay, this is the survey key. And you see here, again, this you can find in Blackboard, but this is a document that shows what the questions were that were asked of each of the participants. And then it also gives descriptions of the variables associated with the answers to those questions. So for example, question 1 asks, which quick service restaurant have you visited most in the last 6 months? And then it shows you here variable name is top 1 that corresponds to the sheet. The data the set where the first column is top 1, and then it shows that the responses are participants had typed text responses. It's as a result, because they typed it in themselves on an iPad, some of the words may be misspelled. So each question has an associated variable name or names that corresponds to the responses. And we're going to use, again, it's important that you read through this so that you have an understanding of what these variables are. And it gives you a sense of what needs to be done with each. Okay, so let's begin with the in-class exercise. The in-class exercise, the objective is to do cluster analysis on the Chipotle data set so you can get some insights on that support segmentation, targeting, and positioning decisions. After you download all of your documents, what you need to do is open up make sure that the Chipotle relabel.xlsx, that's an Excel workbook, is open. The first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to share that again, is we're going to label each of the types of variables that you're using in this analysis. And by the way, it's important once we are done with the workshop that you save the data set based on all the transformations that we're about to do, because not only will it be needed to complete this in-class exercise, but it'll be needed with the transformations to complete the next assignment, assignment 2. Okay, you see here the second tab called variables. We are going to categorize each of these variables based on the type, because that'll be important. So if you go down to question 3 on the in-class exercise assignment, as it says, click on this variables tab, and it contains a descriptive table. Enter the appropriate classification for the type and subtype of variable based on a list of options provided in question 3. So top one, that's the name of the restaurant that the person who responded. Here's the question here: what quick service restaurant have you visited most in the last 6 months? In this particular, because it is with regards to type of restaurant, it might be Chipotle, it might be competitor. Let's just call this a competitor type because it doesn't fit any of the other items on the list. Competitor. There is no subtype. The next one, WOM. WOM is the name of the variable that stands for word of mouth. This is in response to the question, how did you first hear about Chipotle? Check one or more boxes. So respondents are able to check one or more boxes. Word of mouth is basically part of the marketing mix. It's associated with how, in this case, a product, or in case a restaurant, is promoted to others, and some learn through word of mouth. So we're going to say this is a marketing mix variable, and we'll call this product. Notice with top one, this is one of the 5 C's in the marketing process, which is competition. The next one is SM. SM stands for social media, which means they learn from social media. So this again is marketing mix, part of the marketing mix, because this is a channel on how the product's promoted. And I'm sorry, this should have been promotion as a subtype. And this is also promotion as a subtype. Okay. So the next one is the next 2. Everything in terms of answering this question is going to be marketing mix, because it's about how they heard about Chipotle. And well, all of these are going to be about promotion, because again, it's how they heard about Chipotle. So if they walked by Chipotle, they saw it, the exterior helps promote the business. If they saw it on a billboard, that's certainly an element of promotion. Okay, the next variable. This is a variable about how many times have you eaten at Chipotle in the last 3 months. So some people might categorize this as a behavioral variable, and in many contexts you would be right if you did, because this is basically on frequency of attending Chipotle. But because of the nature of the analysis, where you're going to be focused on doing segmentation, targeting, and positioning, and then you're going to evaluate the differences after you segment between the 3 different segments based on the visitation, frequency of visitation to Chipotle. For now, and for this exercise, we're going to call this an outcome variable. This is going to be our outcome variable focus. This is our goal, where we want to find ways to increase visits or maintain visits to Chipotle. And so we'll treat this as an outcome variable. But in some contexts, this might be a behavioral variable. Okay, our outcome focus will be the metric of visits. The next for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are in response to the question, what is important to you when you visit a restaurant? And so respondents were asked to rate on a Likert scale from 1 very unimportant to 5 very important, these different factors. Because they're being asked about what is important to them, this is, in essence, what do they value? So this is a psychographic variable as a result. In terms of the type, this helps and speaks towards segmentation. So we're going to call this a segmentation type of variable, and the subtype is psychographic. And because these all are with respect to the same question, we're going to call them all segmentation variables with a subtype of psychographic. Why? Because these are going to be used in the segmentation of the participants in terms of what they value in a restaurant. The next question in the survey is, and the set of variables associated with it are, how well does Chipotle perform in each one of these items below? So they were asked to rate on the same kind of Likert scale on different dimensions of performance of Chipotle. And because this is really about the performance of the product, in this case, Chipotle, the restaurant and experience, we're going to call that part of the marketing mix. For all of these, answering this question, all these options answer the question. But and because it's part of the marketing mix is associated with the 4 Ps, product, place, price, or promotion. In this case, these are different attributes about the product. And then some of the cases might be about the place. So let's go one by one. Chipotle, is it convenient? In terms of convenient location, this is really more about place and accessibility for people to reach the product. The next one is asking about variety of food options. That's really about the product itself. We copy down marketing mix to all of these because all of these are marketing mix. So variety of food is about the design of the product itself. The next one's asking about prices, good prices. Of course, this is the price and amongst the 4 Ps in the marketing mix. And then the next one's asking about healthy menu options. That's an attribute about the product. How does the food taste? Product. And then pleasant ambiance. One could say that this is really associated with the product if you feel like the restaurant is part of the product. And so we will call this products. Okay, the next 3 are probably direct and obvious. It's asking the next questions are asking, what is your gender, what is your age, and what is your income? These are clearly segmentation variables, and these are clearly about demographics. So we're going to put that there. Okay, and then the last question here is asking, oops, let me save this. The last set of questions are related to how the respondent perceives themselves. And so it's asking, using a scale from 1, strongly disagree, to 5, strongly agree, how does the person feel about themselves with respect to these statements? I plan things carefully. I have trouble controlling my spending. I like to buy local. Eating healthy is important. So these are, again, segmentation variables, because these are dimensions that are about the respondents, the audience, the consumers. And so in terms of a subtype, these kind of things are speaking to psychology again, and it's based on how they perceive themselves. Do they see themselves as a careful planner? Do they see themselves as having a trouble controlling spending or not? What are their tastes in terms of where they like to buy? And what are their thoughts about eating healthy? This is a mixture of own psychology or lifestyle, and both of those fit into psychographic. category of sectographic. And so with that, now we've categorized all the variables, which will be very important later on in the assignment for the in-class exercise or assignment 2 in terms of segmentation. I'm going to go ahead and save that here. And then next, we're going to move on to the main tab of the data set. Okay, so we just completed question 3, which again was about categorizing each of the variables. And in fact, you should copy this and paste it into whatever your answer document will be as your answer to question 3 about categorizing the variables. Okay, now moving on to question 4. But before we get to question 4, you are being directed to standardize the entries that were given by each of the participants in response to the first question about which restaurant did you visit the most in the last 6 months. As it was stated in the survey questionnaire, because the respondents typed in their own answers, some of them are going to be misspelled. Some of those entries are going to be entered in a slightly different way from others. And so in order to answer questions 4, 5, and 6, you'll need to standardize these in order to do analysis on, basically this is textual analysis, very, very simple text analysis. This is very standard in any analytics project where the text is involved, where you'll have to standardize the entries in order to be able to count it. Especially with a small data set like this. Of course, with larger data sets, there's other approaches. So here it is. Let me just show an example of what is meant by why we need to standardize. I'm going to, so the data set you have already has filters in place. And you'll notice here with this filtering pull down menu, it shows all the individual unique entries that are in here. Of course, more than one person might have put in the exact same entry, but these are the unique entries that are in here. And notice that for certain restaurants, it highlights how people might have entered in for the same restaurant, they enter in different ways. So for example, Chick-fil-A here, we'll enlarge this. Hopefully you see it. Chick-fil-A here, you'll see it was had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways that it was spelled by people. Chipotle, 3 different ways of spelled, one of which is clearly a misspelling because it's missing the T. This one, they have the L and the T reversed. And then you see other examples. There's 2 Jason's Delis. That means there's 2 different ways people have entered. There might have been more than 2 people, but at least those are 2 unique ways that it was entered, and so on and so forth. So what we have to do next is standardize the spellings of the restaurants so that when we do counts of how many entries were for example, Chick-fil-A, we'll have an understanding of what the true number of counts are. So in order to do this, and what we're entering in now is the phase of data preparation, where we're going to clean up the data set so that we can prepare for analysis. First, we're going to standardize these items by, what I'm going to do is create a new tab, which is going to just be a regular worksheet for me. This tab we're not necessarily going to keep at the end. I'm going to copy the data and place it in my worksheet here. Let's see. And then what I'm going to do is replace areas that are misspelled. And then when this has all become standardized, then we will copy this back over and copy it over the original column here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on this sheet is add a filter, which is going to aid me in the standardization process. So as you saw, I went up to the upper right hand corner, clicked on sort and filter, and then select a filter for this column, and then added this pull down menu, and it shows the unique values, no matter how many times it's entered, of each of the items in this list. So I'm going to demonstrate with Chick-fil-A how you can do standardization, and then what you should do is go through the list and do the same thing for any other restaurant where you see more than one entry or spelling in the data. So for example, we see multiple entries for Chick-fil-A, that needs to be standardized. Multiple entries for Chipotle, so that's going to need to be standardized. Multiple entries for In-N-Out, this should be treated as just In-N-Out, even though it says kebab shop. So we need to standardize all of those. Jason's Deli, multiple entries. McDonald's, you have 1, 2, 3, that needs to be standardized. Panera Bread, more than one entry. Treat Pizza Express and Pizza Hut as 2 separate restaurants, so that does not need to be standardized. 2 different ways people spelled Subway, 2 different ways that people spelled Wendy's. So those are the ones that need to be standardized. I'm going to demonstrate with Chipotle. So again, with the unique entries, we see that so the approach that should be used for the exercise is with standardization, have all restaurants start with the first letter capitalized, use the correct spelling of the restaurant name. You may want to look it up if you need to, but have at least the first letter of the name capitalized, and then just make sure any entries have that spelling. So for Chick-fil-A, I'm going to choose to have all entries look like this one that you see here, capital C, little HICK dash capital FIL dash capital A. So first I'm going to find all entries that look like this spelling, this first list of spelling. I'm going to replace that. What you can do is select the entire column. And what you can do to facilitate that is use the filter and just select the entries that are spelled incorrectly. The listing is going to show those entries, and then go ahead and replace those entries that you see here with the correct spelling. I'm going to take that and then we'll copy it to each of the other cells. Okay, so now if I show and select all again, show everything, right? If you see, click on the pull down menu. Now, before we had 5 entries with different spellings for Chick-fil-A, but now we only see 1 entry, which means all the entries for Chick-fil-A have been standardized to have that entry. And you can see that there are many, many, many entries for Chick-fil-A. So many people said Chick-fil-A. All right, I'm going to do one more, and then you should do the rest, and then we'll proceed on to the next step. So let's shows Chipotle. As you can see, I'm going to select only the entries that are referring to Chipotle. There seems to be 3 different spellings, and I'm going to standardize them by using the correct spelling, capital C and little HIPOTLE. So actually this is spelled correctly. I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm only going to check the ones that are spelled or not standardized correctly. And so we see this here. Start with the first entry that's not correct. It's just that the T and the L are in the wrong place. And then I'll copy this to each of the other cells. It's important when you copy, something to note for Excel, just to make sure that you're not copying over other cells that are not Chipotle, is to select each cell individually and paste. Don't select the whole range, because inadvertently you might copy over the word Chipotle over other entries that are currently being hidden in the filter. So it's best to go like this. And then if you see, I open the filter again. Now I only see one entry of Chipotle. So that has been standardized and is done. All right, so the entries that are left include In-N-Out, Jason's Deli, McDonald's, and Wendy's. So go ahead and as you've seen me do with both Chick-fil-A and Chipotle, go ahead and standardize those entries so that these restaurants are only listed once when you pull the filter. I will pause for a moment, allow you to do that, and you should pause, and then you can come back and start on with the next step. Okay, by now you should have completed standardizing all the names of your restaurants. If you've done it correctly, then you will see that you will have a list in the filter that looks like this. And if you count them, there should be 21 restaurants. No restaurant will have more than one entry on the filtered list. If you see a restaurant that has more than one entry spelled in different ways in the filtered list, then you are not done. And there should be a total of 21 restaurants. The ones that you ended up transforming should have transformed, which is the answer to question 4 on the in-class exercise. The restaurants are Chick-fil-A, Chipotle, In-N-Out, Panera Bread, McDonald's, Subway, Wendy's, and Jason's Deli. Okay, so this was my worksheet. I'm going to take my transform data. I'm going to copy it from here and put it back to the original data set by copying over here. And now everything should be transformed. Okay, so now that you have standardized this column, you should be able to answer question. I've already given you the answer to question 4. And then question 5 is how many participants answered the survey question with Chipotle? This, since you're doing data analysis for Chipotle, this would be an important question because it would give a sense of the market share based on this survey that, Chipotle has relative to its competitors. And so how do you do this? This is just basically doing a simple count of Chipotle and all the other restaurants. I would recommend doing a pivot table to do this type of count. So I will show you how to do a pivot table. First, you're going to select. I would recommend doing the pivot table based on the worksheet that you've created, where you have the transform variables that have been standardized. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do a pivot table so that you can get a count to answer questions 5 and can help with question 6 as well. So this is the worksheet that I created where I took the entries for the first question and standardized all the variables. Now, what you want to do for a pivot table is you want to select the entire range of data that you want to build a pivot table around. So I'm going to select the column name, which was top 1, and I'm going to select all the way down to the final entry, which is row 358 McDonald's. And then next, what I want to do is go and select the Insert tab at the top, upper left-hand corner, pivot table. And then you'll see a pop-up window that will show, it may not show on the screen, but it should be to your right, pop-up window that says create pivot table. The first entry says select a table or range. You don't need to do that because it's already been selected. And then the second entry says, where do you want the pivot table report? Let's leave it the default and new worksheet because it's going to create a new worksheet, and then hit OK. Click on OK. You'll see that a new tab has been created. And you'll see that it has a template for pivot table. On the right-hand side, it shows at the top box your variable, your column name called top. top one, click on the checkbox in here, and then you'll see in the spreadsheet that it creates the initial listing of all the unique names of the restaurants. But we want to have a count of each one of these restaurants. How many times was it, did it show up in the data? And so what you can do is on the right-hand side where it says pivot table fields, click on top one, which is the name of your column, and then hold down your mouse button and drag it down to the section that says values for rows, and let it go. Each of the restaurants formed a row. When the value section is defaults to counts, it's making an assumption since it's text that you want count. And it creates a second column that shows the number of times each restaurant is entered in the data. And so this helps you to answer question 4, which says, question 5, which says how many participants answered survey question 1 with Chipotle. We see 42 people answered with Chipotle. The second part of the question is what percentage of all participants is this number? So 42 divided by 357. Let's see, 42 divided by 357. You see that's 11 point, if we round 11.8%. So the answer is 42 participants, and 11.8% is what percentage. And this gives you a sense of what's the share of market in that area in terms of mindset or interest in Chipotle. Number 6, which restaurants had more participants name them than Chipotle? So this gives sense of who the competitors are and who might have greater share. List each restaurant, the number of participants that named them, and the share of responses the restaurant received. So if we were to calculate shares for each of these restaurants, shares of participants, let me format it so that it's easier to read. Let's see. Actually, I need to fix the so that it's not fixed. And I need to unfix the cell reference, get rid of the dollar signs, but we want to keep this one A3. Let's see. Actually, what might be better is to do it let's see 357. I'm going to type in, and then let's see if I can make a reference. Okay, so with the pivot tables, because it automatically puts in a function that references the pivot table, we're going to type in references manually. So I want this cell, the cell that shows the counts for Applebee's, which is B4, divided by the cell that shows the total. In this case, it's B25. And then I want to fix the reference with dollar signs. That shows that this is 3% of the share. And now I can drag this down to show each of the shares for each restaurant based on the survey response. And so Chipotle was at 11.8%. In terms of, to answer the question about which other restaurants had higher number of participants, higher share, there are a few here. So some of them are El Pollo Loco. We have 57 and 16% share. We have In-N-Out at 76 respondents, 21.3% share. KFC is lower. McDonald's is lower. We have Panera Bread. Panera Bread's higher, more respondents, 14% share. No other restaurants have greater number of respondents. And so the answers to 6 would be In-N-Out, El Pollo Loco, and Panera Bread. In-N-Out has 76 people, 21.3%. El Pollo Loco has 57 people who responded, 16%. Panera Bread has 50 people who responded, and that results in 14%. All right. So now that we've done that, the next question says there are 24 variables or columns in the Chipotle data set. If a participant answered all survey questions, then there means there are 24 variable values associated with the participant. But we do have a missing data issue. We're going to go back to the data set to see where some of the respondents did not answer all questions. The question is, how many people did not answer all questions in the survey? And again, we are doing data management. We have to deal with missing data. Here's an example with this respondent. They answered some of the initial questions about promotion, but they didn't answer many of the questions about attitude towards aspects that they like in restaurants. You see it again with this participant and this participant. So the question is, how many situations do we have missing data? And so let me show you a trick on how you can best determine this quickly. You see that there are many cases where there's missing data. And since there are missing data, we have to address this. There are multiple strategies on how to address missing data. One way would be to do what you call data imputation, where you predict what people would have answered based on other data in your data set. Another thing is to possibly do analysis, where you do full analysis on questions that they did answer, and then you just skip over those people for questions that they didn't. For the sake of simplicity, what we're going to do is we're going to identify ultimately all the people that did not completely answer all questions, and we're going to delete them from the data set from consideration, and then do analysis only, analysis, clustering analysis, and only the people who completely answer the questions. There is no one right way on whether you delete the data, put it aside, impute it. It depends on what the goals are of your analysis. But for this exercise, we're going to do it. But first, we need to count how many people this will apply to. So an easy way to address this issue is in Excel. What we can do is count how many cells are complete, have some kind of entry for each row. And so what I'm going to do is in column Z, I'm going to enter in the function count A. What that function does is it counts how many entries are in the cells. I'm going to select all the cells in the first row for the first participant. And I know that for the first row with the first participant, that participant answered all questions. I could see that visually. And so I see the number 25. Now what I can do now is drag this function down to all the other rows, and that's going to tell me how many entries there are in, and anything that any row that has less than 25 as a count is an indication that they didn't answer all questions. Let's see. So I see now many entries where the count is less than 25. Let's identify how many of these are less than 25. So I'm going to use another function to quickly figure that out, called count if. Count if is going to count based on some condition you give it. So first it's asking, well, where's the data? What's the range of the data that you are using? And so that's my range. And then the condition is, I'll put in quotation marks, less than 25. Close quotation marks, close parentheses. And based on this, it's saying that there are 44 of these cells in column Z where meets a condition that has a number less than 25. So that's the answer to number 7, that there are 44 participants that did not fully answer the survey. So based on that, we are now going to remove those participants that did not answer the survey. And so I'm just going to go ahead. Here's the first one. I'm going to delete it by selecting that row, delete. Second one, delete. By the way, if somewhere along the way you feel like, oh, I've messed up the data set, don't worry. You can always download the original data set before any of these transformations from Blackboard. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Why don't you continue on deleting the respondents, the 40 respondents that didn't answer completely. It's important to do so that you have consistent answers in the next steps. I will pause and then return when I've deleted all of them. Oh, I skipped one up here. Okay, by now you should have deleted all the rows that have less than, deleted all the respondents that did not complete the survey. And as a result, you should have left, this is my original count if, you see that there's 0 left who have less than 25 responses. You should have left at this point 313 participants. If I scroll down, this is row 314, but the first row represents the labels for the variables. So you should have 313 participants. Now, the next step, step 8, says to insert a new column to the left of top 1. We're going to insert by selecting the entire column, and then you can do right-click on your mouse and select menu insert. And in this column, we're going to call it participant. And then we're going to just do a simple count from the first participant all the way down to the 313th participant. Easy way to do that. Oops. Type 1, 2, 3, and then you can select 1, 2, 3, and then grab with it until you see crosshairs in the corner with this square, drag it down. Excel will infer that you want to count, and it will automatically increment by 1 so that you have 313. This is going to be the label for which participant is being referred to in this updated and cleaned data set. All right, so we're moving along in terms of managing and preparing this data set. Next, you should probably save it so that you save your work. Next, you want number 9 says create new variable columns for dummy variables for each restaurant listed in the first column label, top 1. So if you're not sure what a dummy variable is or how to create it in Excel, I have provided a link to a YouTube video that will give you a quick overview of how to create dummy variables. I'm going to rely on you to look at that if you are not sure how to do that. The way that I'm going to create a dummy variable is I'm going to first create, as if you recall, there are 21 new there are 21 restaurants, so that means there are going to be 21 new variable columns, and each one's going to have a dummy variable for each column. So if you see the image below, and as an example, ultimately that's how it's going to look. So first things first, how do we create in a quick manner the dummy variables, the labels for the columns? Here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to create a unique list of the names of the restaurants. And how I'm going to do that is to copy the names of the restaurants and then use a function in Excel that will pick out only each name once so that I have a unique list of names. Okay, so let me show you a trick on how you can extract just the individual, each name individually from the list of restaurants so that they can become the labels of columns for your dummy variables. Let's go back to the sheet where I had copied the list of the names after they have been transformed. I'm going to make a copy of this table of names. I'm going to paste it here. And then I'm going to use a function that will show me the unique uh, individual names, remove the duplicates. So you can go to click on the data tab, click on the section that shows sort and filter, click on advanced. And then there should be a dialog window that pops up. It says advanced filter. It shows the range of the data that was selected. And this is already selected. Actually, I'm going to select the range of the copy data. Here we go. And then I'm going to click on the check mark box next to unique records only and click OK. And voila, Excel shows me the unique records only in the data range that I selected. Now I'm going to copy the unique records, the unique names without all the duplicates. I'm going to say select that area. I'm going to right click on my mouse, select copy. And then I'm going to go back to my main data set, scroll over to the right. And I'm going to, let's place it here for the moment. We're going to delete these two columns, but I'm going to select this cell, this empty cell to the right, right click on my mouse for pop-up menu. I'm going to select paste special. Just click on paste special. This new dialog box pops up. What we want is we want to paste a transpose version. It's going to take the list, which is going up and down, and transpose is going to now copy those words from left to right. So I'm going to say transpose and hit OK. And as you can see, it puts the names of all the unique names of restaurants. Not all the restaurants are entered in as labels in the front row. Those are going to be new columns in my database. Okay, now let's get rid of these two columns here. We no longer need them. These were the columns that we used for counts to see which participants fully responded to the survey. I'm going to select those two columns and get rid of that. It's up to you whether you want to keep the purple background in or not. It doesn't matter, but these are going to become our new variables. And now next step is to put in ones and zeros. You want to save your work, so save your spreadsheet. The ones and zeros that are going to represent dummy variables. So a 1, it will be put into place if that person in who's responded that says In-N-Out was their top restaurant that they visited in the last 6 months, and it's going to be 0 otherwise. So of course, for this first participant, they would get a 1 in the column this is In-N-Out, but they're going to get a 0 in all the other columns that represent all the other restaurants. So instead of you typing this in one by one, let's use instead a formula that can do the work for you. So I'm going to put in an if formula. If the respondent answer in column B is equal to the name of the restaurant in the current column, then put in a 1, otherwise put in a 0. And what we want to do is we want to put in $signs to fix some aspects of the ranges so that we can copy this formula over. So for the first entry, which is responses from column B, which is what the respondent put in as their restaurant, top restaurant, We don't, as we copy this formula over, we don't want the column to change. It's always going to be column B, so we're going to put a $ in front of the B. But we want the row to be able to change as we copy down. So we leave it like this. And then for the label representing the restaurant in current column, we want the columns to be able to change as we copy it over, but we don't want the row to change because we always want to refer to row 1. So we put a $ in front of the 1. But hit enter. Now it has 1. If we copy this formula over to the other columns, then it's going to check to see if the respondents, the participants' response in column B matches each one of these restaurants, and so automatically puts a 0 because it does not. And then you can copy all of these formulas down to all the rows within the data set. Whoops. Expand it a little bit more. So I'm going to copy it down to all the rows. And as a result, the formulas within will automatically populate in the appropriate cells, 1s or 0s, to represent the responses from each participant. All right. Now, having done all of these things, that concludes the first part of the exercise where you have prepared the data set, you have cleaned it, you have standardized the text entries for the top restaurant, you've created dummy variables based on those entries to represent what people responded in terms of the restaurants they visited most within the last 6 months. And now you have a data set that you can use for k-means clustering. Okay, let's move on to part 2 in a moment.